In this video, I'm going to show you how to copy objects. But before that, I want to talk about primitive and class type of variables and how they behave in memory. And I'm going to show you how to copy primitive variables. And I think these things are very important to know to better understand copying objects. So, what is a primitive variable and what is non-primitive variable? Integers, floats, shorts, and doubles, they are all primitive variables. And for example, strings and basically any object is a class type variable. And the difference between them is that primitive variable holds single value, whereas class type variable holds the address of an object. And I'm going to show you visually the difference between them and how they behave in memory. Okay, and so here we have two lines. The first says number 1 is equal to 5.45. So number 1 is initialized by 5.45, and the second line is the employee 1 object. So this one, number 1, is primitive variable, and employee 1 is a class type variable, reference variable. So let's imagine that this is a memory, okay, and memory is divided into heap and stack. So let's see. Number 1 is a primitive variable, so it has nothing to do with heap. It is on the stack. It's created on the stack. And it holds its value, which is 5.45. And employee 1 is a reference variable, okay? So on the right side, there is a creation of an object, okay? By using the keyword new, we are creating an object. We are creating object, okay? So, and this object is created on the heap. And the address of this object is assigned to employee 1. And employee 1 is created on the stack. So what does it have? It has the address of this object. Employee 1 has an address of employee object. Okay, it's going to refer to this object. So did you understand the difference between them? It's very important. Employee 1, this is an object, and it holds the address of an object. Whereas number 1 is a primitive variable and it holds its value. Okay. So next is copying primitive variables. So here we have 5 lines, and we are going to see one by one. Here we have number 1. And its value is 5.45, okay, and it is created on the stack, and it will hold the value 5.45. The second line, we have a declaration of number 2, but we don't have initialization. We don't have any value assigned to number 1 here. So here we have only declaration, okay, and in the number line, in the third line, we have an assignment. We are assigning number 1 to number 2. So we are assigning the value of number 1 to number 2. Okay, and what is the value of number 1? It's 5.45. So the 5.45 is assigned to number 2. Okay. So when we run this program, we'll have an output value of number 1. What is the value of number 1? we can see it's 5.45. So value of number 2, what is the value of number 2? It's 5.45. Again, 5.45. So when it comes to copying objects, it's a little bit different than copying primitive variables. Okay, so here we have 2 lines, and in the first line we have a reference variable and it's employee 1. Okay, on the right side there is a creation of an object. And this object is created on the heap. Okay, then the address of this object is sent to employee 1. So the address of this object is sent to employee 1. So let's say, for the simplicity of this example, I said 111. Let's assume that this is the address of this object. Okay, so employee 1 will hold the address of this object. Okay, next we have the second line, and in the second line we are assigning employee 1 to employee 2. Okay, so we are assigning the value of employee 1 to employee 2. So what is the value of employee 1? It's 111, the address of this object. Okay, so what happens? We have created an employee 2 variable on the stack. Okay, and we assign the value of employee 1, which is 111, to employee 2. Okay, so what do we have here? We have employee 1 and employee 2 with the same value. Okay, and what is this? This is the address of this object. Okay, so it's going to refer to the same object. What does it mean? We have 2 different reference variables that point to the same object. So did we reach our aim? Did we have a copy of an object? No, we don't have a copy of an object. We have 2 different reference variables that are pointing to the same object. Okay, so this is something that we don't want. To better understand, let me show you something. I'm going to print out employee 1 and run the code, and this line is going to print out the string, and this is object's class name employee, followed by @, and followed by the hexadecimal hash code. And what is hash code? It's basically a number that is unique to this object, employee 1. Okay, the same I'm going to do for the employee 2. Run the code, and if you have noticed, these 2 strings are exactly the same. The numbers, can you see? The numbers are exactly the same. And what does it mean? It means that we have 2 reference variables, employee 1 and employee 2, that are pointing to exactly the same object. Okay, they are not pointing to 2 different objects, but they are pointing to exactly one object. So now I'm going to show how to create a copy of an object by using a copy constructor. And since we want to create a copy of an object of employee class, I'm going to the employee class, and here begin writing a copy constructor. But before this, let's remember, how do we write a constructor, parameterized constructor? Here we have an example for this. So we write employee, then in the parentheses we write the parameter variables like name, position, and ID number. And of course, we are going to write the data type. For example, the data type of name is string. The data type of position is also string. Okay, and this name, position, and ID numbers are going to be assigned as a value to name and ID number and position field of a new object. Okay, so now I'm going to write a copy constructor. So employee, and in the parentheses, I'm going to write the data type first of all. Just like here, string, I'm going to write here a new data type. Since we want to create a copy of an object of employee class, I'm going to write here employee. Okay, and give a name for a parameter variable, like for example object2. And in the body, I'm going to take object2's name and assign it to the name field of a new object. And the same thing I will do for the rest parameter variables. So object2 position will be assigned to position field of a new object. Object2's ID number will be assigned as a value of ID number field of a new object. Okay, position. So we have created our copy constructor, and let's see whether it works or not. We go to the example class, and here I'm going to create employee 3. Okay, let me write employee, and in the parentheses I have to give an object, one object. And since we have here ready employee 1 with the values Ali, accountant, and 1 to 3, so I want to make a copy of employee 1, and here I will write employee 1. So employee 3 will have the values of employee 1, but separate objects. Okay, now let me print out employee 3, and what happens here when I run the program? It will show 3 lines, 3 if you like, the memory locations. Okay, I'm going to run the program. So here we have 3 memory locations. The first line is for employee 1, the second line is for employee 2, and the third line is for employee 3. If you noticed, here we have the first 2 lines are exactly the same. If you remember, what did we say? We said that we created 2 reference variables that are pointing to exactly one object. But when it comes to the third line, this is a memory location of employee 3. It's different. It means we have a separate object. A separate object that has exactly the same values as employee 1. So let's go and let me show you here. So here we have a statement, and here we have a copy constructor. So employee 1 is an argument, and it will be passed to the parameter variable. So employee 1's name is assigned as a value to the name field of our new object. So employee 1's position will be assigned to the position field of a new object. And So let me show you what happens in the memory. Okay. Let me run this. So here, these ones we know, employee 1 and employee 2, they are pointing to exactly the same object. When it comes to the 11th line, here in this line, we are declaring employee 3 on the stack, okay? But it has nothing here. So next, what do we have? We are creating a new object that will take all the values of employee 1 and copy to this object. So we have an object that will take all the values to itself. So Ali, 1, 2, 3, an accountant. And the address of this new object will be a value of employee 3. Okay, so let's say the address of this is 589. So the value of employee 3 is 589.